Tiaogwip, and welcome back to Britain's Golden Era, where we explore the food of different regions and countries from the UK to better understand their culture, history and people. Today we're heading to Northern Ireland, with 10 tremendous Northern Irish dishes, but first a little about the area. Northern Ireland is the most westerly part of the UK. It is connected to the Republic of Ireland, but is a part of the United Kingdom. Northern Ireland is famous for its music, with bands like Snow Patrol having roots in the area, as well as famous faces like Liam Neeson and of course the hit TV show Derry Girls. The food in Northern Ireland is somewhat more of an underreported treat. However, foodies wishing to explore Northern Ireland have a lot to look forward to. Without further ado, at number 10 is Ulster Fry. Ulster Fry is Northern Ireland's national dish. Originating as a hearty single-pan breakfast cooked over an open fire by rural farmers, it provided the high-calorie energy needed for long days of labour. When factories and city life expanded in the 20th century, the meal transitioned into a beloved staple of local cafes. The hallmark of a true Ulster Fry is that the bulk of ingredients are traditionally fried in bacon fat, and it features distinctive griddle-based breads, unique to Northern Irish cuisine. It is made up of bacon, sausage, fried eggs, black pudding, sometimes a fried tomato, a vegetable roll, which is another touchstone of Northern Irish food, and of course potato bread or soda farls. At number 9 is soda farls. Soda farls are one of the most common types of food in Northern Ireland. The word farl actually comes from Old Scots, with the word fardal, meaning 4 parts, being seen as inspiration. The history of the food item is linked to the struggle of the Northern Irish people. Ireland's damp climate is perfect for growing wheat, but only soft wheat is low in gluten, meaning it doesn't rise well when paired with traditional yeast. For centuries, making light, fluffy, yeasted bread was incredibly difficult for Irish home cooks. Around the late 1830s, bicarbonate of soda was commercially introduced to the UK and Ireland. Irish cooks quickly discovered that if they mixed this soda with sour buttermilk, a chemical reaction occurred. The lactic acid in the milk activated the baking soda, creating carbon dioxide bubbles that instantly forced the dense, low-gluten dough to rise without the need for yeast or hours of proving. During the devastating Irish potato famine, which sadly influences a number of things on this list, the potato crops failed, forcing families to rely heavily on cheap grain. Baking soda was inexpensive and fast. Because many impoverished rural households lacked standard kitchen ovens, they cooked their dough on flat iron griddles over open turf fires. Shaping dough into thin farls allowed it to cook all the way through quickly over an open flame, while the south of Ireland traditionally kept the dough in a thick, round loaf, scored it with a cross to let the fairies out, and baked it in a pot. Ulster bakers preferred the griddle method, cutting the rounds into 4 separate farls, allowed them to easily flip the bread on a hot fire plate. They are made from plain flour, bicarbonate of soda, buttermilk and salt. At number 8 is dulst, or dilishink in Irish. Apologies for my pronunciation. This dish shares Celtic similarities with laverbread from Wales. It is a type of edible seaweed that is commonly eaten as a snack, sun-dried and eaten out of a paper bag. The history of the foodstuff is long and deeply woven into the maritime history of Northern Ireland. The relationship between Northern Ireland and dulse spans centuries of necessity, survival and maritime tradition. The earliest written record shows that the monks of St. Columba, one of Ireland's patron saints, were harvesting dulse off the coastline over 1400 years ago to feed the poor and supplement their own simple diets. Celtic warriors famously chewed on dried dulse before long marches to boost their stamina, and then British sailors chewed it like tobacco to prevent scurvy centuries later. During the Great Famine, when potato crops failed, coastal families survived entirely by foraging for dulse at low tides. Because it was free, abundant and nutrient-dense, it kept entire communities alive. This gave it its historical association with poverty, though it remained widely loved across all social classes. In the 19th and 20th century, local fishermen along the Ulster coastline would pick dulse when the fishing seasons were slow to earn extra money. Dulce's most famous home is the Old Lammas Fair in Ballycastle, County Antrim, held every August since 1606. It features the longest-running dulse trading tradition in the world. Visitors flock to the fair to buy bags of salty dulse paired with Yellow Man, a hard rock Honeystone-style toffee which we'll talk about later. The pairing of the intensely salty seaweed with the ultra-sweet toffee is a legendary Northern Ireland culinary tradition. At number 6 is the Belfast Bap. The Belfast Bap was explicitly born out of necessity and compassion during the Irish potato famine in the 1840s. It was created by Bernard Barney Hughes, a legendary industrialist, master baker and prominent philanthropist, who became Belfast's first elected Catholic city politician. As the potato crop failed and rural refugees flocked into Belfast looking for mill work, thousands faced starvation. Most working class families lived in crowded tenements with absolutely no ovens or proper cooking facilities. Bread was the ideal survival food because it required no preparation and kept well. Hughes refused to exploit the food shortage and put up prices. He designed a highly nutritious, filling and cheap bread roll to sustain the poor. He took steps to keep the price as low as possible so even the poorest citizen could afford it. he famously supplemented standard wheat flour with a blend of peas and beans. While the peas and beans flour mixture saved thousands of lives, its high fibre content caused legendary digestive effects. Local school children immortalised with a cheeky street rhyme about flatulence that is still remembered in Belfast today. To get the legendary dark charred top, the baps are placed very close together on a baking sheet. This forces the dough to rise straight up rather than outwards. It is made up of white bread flour, water, sugar, salt, yeast, butter, rice, flour, as well as sometimes a splash of milk. Today it is usually combined with the Ulster fry to make its own unique breakfast sandwich option. At number 6 is champ. Champ is a comfort dish featuring mashed potato and spring onion. The history of the dish is a reflection of the potato's history in Ireland. Introduced to Ireland in the late 16th century, the potato thrived in a damp soil. By the 18th century, it had become the primary dietary staple for the rural poor. Because land was heavily taxed and subdivided, a family could survive comfortably on a tiny plot of land growing nothing but potatoes. Eating plain boiled potatoes got boring, so to add some flavour, they started to mix in fresh greens that they could find growing in gardens. Spring onions grew abundantly in backyard gardens, making them the cheapest, easiest way to inject sharp, punchy flavours into a bland meal. During periods of economic hardship, champ was a complete lifesaving. When milk and butter were scarce, families would use the liquid from the boiling potatoes or a splash of lard, but the core combination of starch and greens remained. Historically, champ was also tied to the Samhain festival, which is Halloween. Families would hide clean coins, rings, or charms inside the massive bowl of champ. Finding a coin meant wealth was coming, whilst finding a ring meant marriage within the year. And number 5 is box tea, or as it would be in Irish, box tea. This is a traditional Irish potato pancake that is crispy on the outside and chewy on the inside. The history of box tea is a story of squeezing every ounce of nutrition out of a single crop to avoid waste, which is a staple of broader British cooking. The name box tea is thought to come from the Irish Árainn Buchtach tea, meaning poorhouse bread. Another theory suggests it could come from Bacchus, meaning bakehouse. Both origins point to its status as a cheap, filling homemade food for the working class. In a rural Northern Ireland, making box tea was a great way to salvage potatoes that were highly bruised or turning soft. Home cooks would grate the raw potato over a bucket and squeeze the liquid through a clean linen cloth or tea towel. The liquid squeezed over the potatoes was left to sit. Over an hour later, pure white potato starch would settle at the bottom of the bucket. The water was poured off, the dry starch was collected, and it was used as laundry starch to stiffen shirts, or mixed back into the bread dough to make it even more filling. Box tea was easy to prepare because, like soda files, it didn't require an oven. The thick batter was ladled directly onto a hot iron griddle over an open peat fire. Incredibly filling and kept well, making it a reliable food during the winter months and lean times of the Great Famine. An authentic, old-school box tea relies on cheap staple ingredients found in any 19th century Irish cottage or modern supermarket. Raw potatoes, mashed potatoes, flour, buttermilk, baking soda, salt, butter or lard. There are 3 types of box tea, depending on how it's cooked. These are the box tea pancakes, the most common. A thin batter is dropped onto a greased pan and fried like a thick American pancake until golden brown. The box tea loaf, the mixture is made much thicker, shaped into a soft loaf, boiled in a pot in a cloth, and then sliced and fried in butter, or the box tea dumpling. The dough is rolled into small balls and dropped directly into boiling stew or soup. Today, modern Irish restaurants use box tea pancakes like tortillas, rolling them up and stuffing them with gourmet fillings like chicken, mushrooms, beef stew, or smoked salmon. As we switch over to the sweet treats of Northern, we just want to take this opportunity to say if you enjoy the content we make about regional dishes within the UK, as well as looking at the countries and cultures therein, then please click the subscribe button and make sure you turn on notifications so you don't miss new videos. We make this content purely for the love of culture and to try and dispel the notion that British food is bad. It really isn't. At number 5 is brack. Brack is a traditional Irish sweetbread similar to the Welsh barra breath, with sultanas and raisins that have been soaked overnight in strong black tea and whiskey. The name comes from the Irish phrase barrin brack, which literally translates to speckled loaf, referring to the dark fruit dots scattered throughout the bread. Whilst enjoyed year-round with tea, it is the ultimate traditional Irish Halloween. Centuries of Irish folklore dictate that the specific hidden objects baked inside the loaf will predict the finder's fortune for the coming year. This is similar to champ. The roots of barra brack stretch back to the ancient Celtic traditions and the evolution of Irish baking. Barra brack was originally baked to celebrate Samhain, the Celtic festival marking the end of the harvest season and the beginning of the dark winter, which later evolved into modern Halloween. Samhain was a time when the veil between our world and the spirit world was believed to be at its thinnest, making it the prime night for fortune-telling and divination. To play into this mysticism, bakers would mix specific symbol tokens into the brack dough before baking. Family members would then cut into the loaf with immense anticipation. Finding a token in your slice predicted your fate. The ring, you would marry within the year. The coin, you would enjoy immense wealth and good fortune. The rag cloth, you would face poverty or financial hardship. The thimble, you would remain a lifelong bachelor or spinster. The pea, you would not marry. It is made up of tea, dried fruits, eggs, brown sugar, flour, baking powder, pumpkin pie mix. And at number 4 is Fly's Graveyard. Fly's Graveyard is a classic currant square. It is also known as Fly's Cemetery fruit slice or currant squares. It is a classic British and Irish baked staple consisting of a dense, spiced fruit filled sandwiched between 2 layers of flaky pastry. The horrifying nickname comes purely from the dark British sense of humour. The hundreds of tiny shriveled black currants jammed into the pale dough comically like a mass grave of dead flies. Depending on where you order it, the name shifts slightly. The origins of Fly's Graveyard date back to the 19th century, evolving out of the industrial boom in Scotland and northern England during the Victorian era. The expansion of British Empire trade routes made dried Mediterranean fruits like Zante currants and raisins incredibly cheap and widely accessible to the public. Factory shipyards and mill workers required immense amounts of sugar and carbs to fuel long shifts. Industrial bakers and local corner sweet shops began producing large flat trays of these pastry fruit squares because they were cheap ingredients, didn't spoil quick, and were highly filling. It became an instant hit for afternoon tea. At number 2 is Yellow Man candy. Yellow Man candy is a traditional Northern Irish confectionery item, famous for its bright golden yellow colour, deep caramelised sweetness and unique texture that crosses a hard, brittle rock top with bubbly honeycomb. The heritage of Yellow Man is inseparable from the town of Ballycastle. Yellow Man's history is bound tightly to the Old Lammas Fair, a historical harvest festival held in Ballycastle every August since 1606. Ancient versions of pulled toffee were likely made earlier. Modern Yellow Man emerged in the 19th century, following the commercial availability of baking soda and refined syrups. In the early 20th century, production began dominated by a small, tightly knit network of fruit-selling families from Ballymena, most notably the Devlins, McCowns, and the Agnew families. They brought massive rocks of the pale yellow toffee to the fair, guarding a highly secreted, precise formula that gave their recipes a unique texture no one else could replicate. Predominantly cemented into Irish folklore by a local Ballycastle shopkeeper named John Henry McCulley, he composed the famous traditional ballad, The Old Lammas Fair, which featured the legendary chorus celebrating the fair's 2 staple foods, both of which have been on this list. It is made up of golden syrup, brown sugar, Irish butter, and vinegar, which can be white or cider vinegar, and bicarbonate of soda. The old school pulled method, which would feature home cooks pour the frothy mixture directly into a tin to set the honeycomb. Traditional artisans pour the hot candy onto an oiled slab, add vanilla flavouring, and repeatedly stretch and pull the toffee over large metal hooks by hand. This would then change the amber syrup into a signature light opaque yellow colour. Today, Yellow Man has broken out of its once-a-year fairground limitations. Modern Northern Irish chefs and sweet procurers utilise intense crunch to flavour premium local ice creams, dust it over cheesecakes, and fold it into artisan milk chocolate bars. At number 1 is 15s. 15s are a legendary brightly coloured fridge cake tray bake natively entirely to Northern Ireland. Unlike most of the historical bakes we've looked at, 15s requires absolutely no cooking or baking. Instead, the ingredients are crusted, bound together in a tight log, chilled in the fridge, and sliced into individual rounds. They are the absolute staple of Northern Irish birthday parties, school bake sales, and local cafe culture. The name of the treat tells you exactly what is inside the recipe. It relies on a beautifully simple, easy-to-remember math formula based on a number 15. It has 15 digestive biscuits, 15 glacé cherries, and 15 marshmallows. It also features condensed milk and a spoon of coconut. Following the end of sugar rationing in 1953, home cooks eagerly embraced sweet treats. At the same time, the mass availability of canned goods like condensed milk and packaged biscuits revolutionised the kitchen. 15s emerged in the 1960s and 70s as a brilliant way to introduce children to the kitchen. Because it required zero heat, sharp knives, or complex measurements, it quickly became a foundational recipe taught to primary school children across Ulster. Northern Ireland has a unique, world-famous cafe culture centred entirely around the tray bake. A sweet, square-cut confectionery served alongside afternoon tea. 15s quickly rose to the top tier of this culture, standing proudly in the bakery windows, alongside caramel squares and Fly's Graveyard, also on this list. For decades, 15s remained a strictly guarded regional secret. If you crossed the border into the Republic of Ireland or took a ferry to Scotland or England, bakers had traditionally never heard of them. Thanks to the internet and shows like the Great British Bake Off, they are now recognised globally as a unique Ulster creation. To make them, the crushed biscuits, marshmallow pieces, and cherry halves are tossed in a bowl, the condensed milk is poured over, and everything is mixed into a thick, sticky paste. The mixture is dumped onto a sheet of plastic wrap or parchment, heavily dusted with coconut. It is rolled into a tight, sausage-shaped log, wrapping the coconuts securely around the edge. After chilling, the log is unrolled and sliced into distinctive white and pink and bright red speckled rounds. And there we have it, 10 tremendous Northern Irish dishes for you to try the next time you visit. With history, stunning vistas, and plenty of culture, Northern Ireland is well worth a visit. If you enjoyed this video and like what we do, please subscribe and drop a like. We make new videos almost every week about different regions and countries in the UK and their food, using it as a jumping off point to talk about the people, their history, and their culture. Make sure to turn on notifications to make sure you don't miss any of our videos. If you are planning a visit to the UK, check out our Foods of the UK playlist, wherein we have videos about the foods of Cornwall, Yorkshire, the Lake District, the Peak District, as well as industrial heartlands such as Lancashire and Northumberland, as well as the scenic delights of Cheshire and Shropshire. You can use these videos to plan your own food tours of these regions, or see if there's any local food you want to add to your trip. If you want to talk about Northern Ireland, its food or its history, or to let us know what your favourite Northern Irish food dish is, then please do so in the comments below and share this video with your friends. We look forward to hearing. A lot of the time, tourists here are all about London, Edinburgh and some of these other big cities, but know precious little about cities like Belfast. The aim of these videos and this channel is to change that. Next week, we're heading north and exploring the foods of the Highlands. Look forward to that. Be well, eat something good today, and thank you for watching. Slán.